So the media are absolutely twisting the story of what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. Again, doesn't mean the 17-year-old should be crossing state lines with a gun. I believe there's a gun charge here. He'll probably get convicted of the gun charge. This is not a first-degree murder case. There's no legal standard by which you can claim, based on the available footage, beyond a reasonable doubt there's a first-degree murder case. Here is how the media covered it, however. AP. A white 17-year-old police admirer was arrested Wednesday after 2 people were shot to death during a third straight night of protests in Kenosha over the police shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake. Kyle Rittenhouse of Antioch, Illinois, about 15 miles from Kenosha, was taken into custody in Illinois on suspicion of first-degree intentional homicide in the attack Tuesday that was largely captured on cell phone video. The shooting left a third person wounded. I just killed somebody, the gunman carrying a semi-automatic rifle could be heard saying at one point. Okay, it takes until paragraph 18 of this story to explain what exactly happened here. Apparently, what actually happened here is that he was attacked twice. Okay, so we have all this on tape. There's plenty of cell phone video. So let's go through the cell phone video. By the way, this is not my account of what happened that night. This is now the account of the New York Times. A person named Christian Trebert is the visual investigations guy at the New York Times, and he used to work for the I believe the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. But in any case, he actually traced the movements of this person. So the night began for Kyle Rittenhouse explaining to various members of conservative media who were on the ground there doing the actual coverage why he was there. So here's the 17-year-old guy explaining that not only is he there to protect private property, he's also a trained EMT, so he's there to provide medical attention to people. By the way, in the early hours of this particular riot, he provided medical attention to the rioters and looters. Okay, that is not a white supremacist out to shoot rioters and looters. Here was Kyle Rittenhouse explaining.
We're protecting from the citizens, and I just got pepper sprayed by a person in the crowd.
So you had non-lethal, but you didn't respond.
We don't have non-lethal.
So you guys are full on ready to defend the property?
Yes, we are. Now, if I can ask, can you guys step back? Medical, EMS right here. I'm an EMT. I am an EMT.
Okay, so literally at the end of the tape, he says, I'm an EMT. I'm happy to help, right? Those are rioters and looters. Those are the protesters, right? I'm happy to help. Okay, at one point, Rittenhouse walks up to a police vehicle with his rifle slung and he talks with the police officers, and one tosses a water bottle to them. This has been used as evidence that the police officers are in league with these guys. Okay, these guys are not violating the law at this point. If you're over the age of 18, you're allowed to publicly carry in Wisconsin for virtually any reason. Okay, so it only starts to become a crime if you wrongfully use the gun. Okay, so what happens, according to Christian Trebert, is that Rittenhouse eventually leaves the car dealership that he is defending, and he's barred by the police from returning at that point because he has crossed the line. Okay, and then there were 6 separate live streams. So there were 2 separate shooting incidents, one about a minute and a half earlier than the other. So in the first, you can see Rittenhouse, he's being chased into a parking lot. Okay, while he is being pursued, this is according to the New York Times, while he is being pursued, an unknown gunman fires the first shot into the air. So he doesn't fire the first shot. Somebody else is chasing him and fires the first shot. You can actually see it in another angle of this particular tape. But here's what then what happens is he goes behind a car. There's a man who's throwing things at him and chasing him. You hear some shouting, and then he fires. Right? According to the New York Times, while he's being pursued, an unknown gunman fires the first shot into the air. Rittenhouse turns toward the sound of the gunfire as another pursuer lunges toward him. He then fires 4 times with his assault rifle and appears to shoot the man in the head. Okay, so this is all disturbing footage, so you have been warned. Here's the tape. You can see Rittenhouse being pursued by this guy, chasing him. He throws something. It's not a Molotov cocktail, by the way. It's a bag filled with something. Okay, and then there's a slight delay. And then you see the shots go off. Okay, now at this point, it's unclear why Rittenhouse was being chased, why he was in the area of this car dealership. It's about 4 blocks away from the one that he was originally protecting. Okay, the initial shot were fired by 3 more shots in the parking lot. We don't know who fired them. Rittenhouse then takes out his phone and he makes a phone call. He calls 911 to both turn himself in because somebody has been shot, right? You can see him there on the cell phone. And he's calling. He's calling the cops to come. And then people start chasing him again. So people start chasing him again, which brings us to tape number 2. Now he's running away from a mob that is attempting to do him harm. How do we know they're attempting to do him harm? Because he falls down and one of them shouts, "Get his ass." At which point a man jumps on him with a skateboard and tries to club him with the skateboard. At this point, Rittenhouse shoots the guy who's trying to club him with the skateboard, and there's another man who's approaching him with the pistol. Now, we don't know if this guy with the pistol is the one who originally fired the shot in the air at the incident a minute and a half earlier. Okay, and here is what it looked like when he shot two other people. One of these guys died. He was running toward the police, by the way, to turn himself in. Right? This is what he was doing. Okay, so you can see this guy hits him from behind. Here are people chasing him. You can see he's pushed from behind and he falls down on the ground. He turns around and a guy tries to jump on him with the skateboard. There's several people trying to jump on him. He shoots one of them, and then another guy has a gun and he shoots him in the arm. The guy who's shot in the arm does have a pistol. There are pictures of him. Half his arm is gone, because this is what happens when you get hit close range by a bullet. And then he's trying to surrender. The cops don't actually know what's going on at this point, so they drive past him. So people have been using this as, why didn't they arrest him? Because they don't know what's going on yet. He's with his hands up. That's why they don't arrest him. Like, why didn't they shoot him? They shot Jacob Blake because he wasn't going for a knife against the cops. That would be the reason, guys. Trevor Noah, idiot, was like, oh, well, Jacob Blake got shot. Why didn't they shoot this guy? Because he literally was not pointing a gun at them. That would be the reason. By the way, lots of criminals don't get shot by the cops. People pointed out that the shooter in Charleston, the horrible, racist shooting of the terrorist attack on the black church in Charleston, that shooter was captured alive by the cops. Right, because he didn't try to shoot the cops. The Washington, D.C. snipers were also captured alive by the cops. They were black because they weren't trying to shoot the cops. Okay, in any case, he ends up being arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Based on this tape, it's going to be very difficult to sustain a first-degree murder conviction. Like, extremely difficult. There's no evidence, according to the senator from Connecticut, calls him a deranged white supremacist. No evidence of that. Also, there is no evidence that he was out there to shoot people. Right? He's literally running away from people in both of these tapes. The only way you get a first-degree murder conviction is if he was threatening somebody with the gun before somebody tried to jump him or something. Okay, we don't have evidence of that. So who are the people who are actually shot? And doing the reporting that the mainstream media will not do. The first guy who was shot, the one who died, and there's a Daily Caller reporter on scene who took off his shirt, tried to tourniquet the guy's head. The guy died anyway. The media, by the way, really downplayed the fact that there was a right-wing reporter trying to help a protester / rioter / looter who was threatening the teen shooter. His name was Joseph Rosenbaum. He was 36. Video allegedly showed him chasing the teen shooter and throwing something at him. And then he kind of ducks behind a car before the shooting actually happens. He was a registered sex offender for a sex crime involving a minor. You can also see him on tape a little bit earlier in the night threatening people. And so it seems like maybe the aggressor here in the original iteration might not have been Kyle Rittenhouse. Here is the tape of this guy. This is, minutes before the actual shooting? Okay, so you can see him there. He's in the red shirt, and he is saying the N-word. He is saying the N-word at that point. It ends with an A in his iteration. Okay, and this is the person who ended up being shot, apparently. So that is one person. The second person who was shot is a person named Anthony Huber, shot and killed. He was filmed chasing down the teen and hitting him when he was on the ground with the skateboard. He has a criminal history, including charges of battery and repeat domestic abuse. And the third person who was shot and survived is a person named Gage Grosskreutz, who is 26, a member of the People's Revolution Movement. He was filmed chasing after the teen with a pistol and was shot at close range in the upper arm. And he has a criminal record as well, including being intoxicated and armed with a gun. So there are all your facts, most of which you will not receive from the mainstream media, except for that one late-breaking but good thorough report from the New York Times. So the story you've been told is that this kid was a deranged white supremacist militia member who went out looking for blood. There is little to no evidence that that is the case. It's going to be very difficult to sustain a first-degree murder charge against this person. Now, meanwhile, the danger levels were rising in Kenosha, Wisconsin. There's tape of one of the people who is one of the rioters and looters encouraging the BLM crowd to head on off to people's homes and harass them at their homes and businesses, which is always a great look.
Nobody that way giving us problems. That way. Police stay that way. Everybody stay east of the GA. That's why it's a f***ing curfew. That's dumb as hell. See this? Let's go on the other side. East by the lake. Where the sheriff stay. Where the police stay. Where the man stay. Let's go.
Let's go over where the police are, where the man is. You know, that's the line here. So we're going to go over into peaceful civilian areas and create chaos. So that's always a great look. So how did the media cover all of this? So the media have been downplaying rioting and looting. They've been saying that it's a myth. It's something in your imagination for a long time. Did the media change their minds when it turns out that it is not only not a myth, Americans are worried about it? Of course not. This is an actual chyron that appeared on CNN last night. It was so insane. I thought it had to be Photoshopped when I first saw it last night. So there's a segment CNN aired. They had a reporter on the ground. This is not the reporter's fault. He didn't write the chyron. And in this segment, you can see literally things burning behind the reporter. So here is the reporter in Kenosha, Wisconsin. You're going to hear him talk. The chyron underneath. Literally things are burning in the background. You can see cars, businesses burning in the background. The chyron from CNN, your most trusted name in news. Your media who are actively rooting for rioting and looting and justifying rioting and looting and excusing it and proclaiming that anyone who opposes rioting and looting is opposed to black lives and all of this bullcrap. Okay, here is CNN's chyron. I'm going to read it to you. Okay, you ready? Fiery, but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. Fiery, but mostly peaceful protests. So here's what we've got from the media. He had a knife, but otherwise unarmed. And fiery, but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. They think you're a moron. They think you're an actual moron. You're looking at tape of crap burning in the background. And the chyron, I don't know who wrote, like, who the hell wrote, did the rioters write the chyron? Apparently. Fiery, but mostly peaceful protests. Yes, and the Titanic voyage, as my friend Bridget Fedesi says, the Titanic voyage was watery, but mostly safe. Fiery, but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. They're justifying the rioting. They're justifying the looting. They want it. They like it. There's no other way to justify that chyron. That's insane. That's insane. And then, of course, you get the members of the CNN crew trying to blame Trump for the unrest. Is a single one of these areas governed by Republicans? The answer is no. They've been governed by Democrats for decades. Here's Anderson Cooper trying to blame Trump for the unrest. Trump, who has nothing to do with this. Okay, here's Anderson Cooper.
The vice president is saying, and quote, we will have law and order on the streets of America, future tense, we will have it. But this is the Trump's America. I mean, he has been now in power. It is as if the vice president and the president are talking as if they are just observers to what is going on, as if they are running to unseat the sitting president and vice president. They are this is the administration. This is their vision for America.
Their vision for America is the rioting and the looting. When Trump sent in federal forces to try and stop this stuff in Chicago and in Portland, Anderson Cooper and the rest of the CNN jackasses were sitting around talking about how he was a fascist. Jake Tapper, who's normally much better than this, but Jake Tapper yesterday, he was like, look at these RNC people. They're dehumanizing the rioters and the looters. You're damn right. Okay, like, it is not humane or human behavior. It is inhuman behavior to participate in rioting and looting. That is not behavior that should be humanized. It is not good behavior. Okay, you should be treated with disdain if you are rioting and if you are looting. And no, I'm not talking about protesters here. The media do this fun little trick where if you specifically say that you think that rioting and looting is inhumane behavior and should not be humanized, that if you say that, then you are somehow dehumanizing protesters. They're not the same group. And if you keep treating them as the same group, then you are actually doing a disservice to the protesters, of course. But here is Jake Tapper saying it's very bad that Republicans keep using this, inflammatory language about people who are burning crap and trying to kill people. Jake is better than this, and I'm shocked at him, frankly.
We've known that this was going to break throughout the night, and I wondered if that was going to temper at all some of the language we have heard from Republican officials talking about the mob, talking about these protesters in very dehumanizing ways. This individual, if he is guilty, he is responsible for his crimes, not any of the individuals he supports, including President Trump. But the idea that a supporter of President Trump is accused of killing protesters last night.
Okay, what? Okay, first of all, you may want to actually include the facts of the case there, Jake. It turns out that by video, the guy is probably defending himself. It's going to be very difficult to sustain a first-degree murder charge in that particular case. And then to blame that on Trump, and then to suggest, how dare people use dehumanizing language about a mob of people who are attempting to burn businesses and loot things and be the world's worst humans. If this is the, I don't know how to read the media treatment of this other than they are rooting for the rioters and the looters. I don't know how to read that. I'd love to read it another way. I mean, there was an ABC News reporter last night who's like, well, and Trump, he keeps doing this thing where he leans into law and order. Why is he leaning into law and order? Maybe he's leaning into law and order because the cities are damned on fire. Like, what in the actual hell is wrong with these people? This is ABC News last night.
Silence from the president on the shooting of Jacob Blake. He was briefed on it days ago, but so far has not made any public comments. Instead, what we are seeing from the president is him leaning into his law and order message, saying that the governor of Wisconsin should call in the National Guard to help with the racial unrest and the violence in his state. And that does serve as a sharp contrast to what his rival Joe Biden is saying.
It draws a sharp contrast because Biden is so sympathetic and empathetic. By the way, we're going to get to Joe Biden in just a second, who continues to throw fuel on the fire. I understand that yesterday he made a statement where he, in very measured terms, says that it's unnecessary to engage in rioting and looting, and then proceeded to justify basically every element of the rioting and looting. He just said, don't be so pissed off, vote for me. Right? This is the blackmail game that the Democrats are playing. Barack Obama played it last week. The protesters are the best among us. Riots and looters don't exist. And by the way, the only way to heal this, the system works. If you just vote for us, you just vote for us. And then you don't have to riot and loot, because all your problems will be solved. Okay, American voters should not acquiesce to this game of extortion, where Democratic politicians essentially pat on the head rioters and looters for months on end in places like Portland and Seattle and Chicago and New York and Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles. And then they say, well, yes, but if you elect us, don't worry, the system is still working. It's despicable.